As far as it allows you guys to look at yourselves in the mirror basically and find out what's wrong and then find out ways to actually fix it. I know I had mental setbacks last year, like late last year. I still have some mental setbacks as far as like doubt and shit like that, but I mean, when I disconnect, gives me time to myself, gives me time to reflect, and then gives me time to realize what got me to be the best version of myself. So, and that's really the important thing. And I think people don't like to disconnect because they think they'll be lonely too. So, and I do want to ask, like, how can you disconnect without feeling lonely?
That's a good question, and I'm glad you asked it. My take on that is disconnecting doesn't always imply the total physical separation from other people. In my mind, the way that I see disconnecting is just the intentional practice of creating distance between oneself and outside circumstances. So I could, like, even during the period of disconnection, life doesn't stop. You still have family, you still may have relationships, you may have work responsibilities and friends and things like that. But maintaining those friendships and those relationships as you go about your disconnecting and making intentional time for you to do these things that we talked about. But yeah, it's a balancing act, because for us to completely disconnect in its truest sense away from the world, like go off in a log cabin somewhere in the woods and just abandon responsibilities, it's not feasible for most of us. We still have day-to-day responsibilities and the world doesn't stop, like I said. So
what about for the people that feel alone even though they're still with people, physically still with people? They could be feeling alone mentally.
What about them? I'm not saying like that I don't care, but like what specifically are you asking about them?
I'm asking, how do you disconnect without them feeling lonely? Because even if they're still physically with people, they could still feel lonely mentally, you know?
Double down on those relationships that do matter. I mean, even when you do feel that there is some degree of loneliness, I mean, that's a normal human feeling. And just really focusing and emphasizing on the relationships that do bring the most value to your life, the people who do care about you, and then do the same thing. And you could talk about exactly what you're doing while you're disconnecting, the purpose behind it, things you've discovered. Because some of the best revelations that have come to me were spawned by conversation. And I feel like that's something where you go off to yourself, you think, you come back, you present the idea, kind of like we do the podcast. We have a question, we talk about something, go our separate ways, come back on a Sunday or Tuesday, depending on how the week works out, talk about it, learn something new. And it's the very same thing.